guys, it's Cherish from the Motley News. It's been a while since you've heard from me, but I'm back, so never fear. We are here to talk about books. Specifically, we are here to talk about Zadie Smith's new novel, which came out only, a couple weeks ago, called Swing Time. It is so good, and we're going to talk about all the themes, plot stuff. Maybe I'll read a segment here and there, I don't know. But there will be spoilers, so I'm sorry about that. But I desperately have to talk to somebody about this book. First, if you're not familiar with Zadie Smith, she is a British writer. She is a multiracial, white and Jamaican born writer from England. She is super awesome, and I love her, and I just want to hang out with her and talk to her. So Zadie, if you're out there and you need to talk to a quirky gal from Toledo, Ohio, I'm here. Let's do some shopping and drink wine. I'm all about it. Like I said, this is her fifth novel. If you're not familiar with her writing, I suggest you start with the obvious first choice, White Teeth. She wrote this when she was like 21. What were you doing at 21? Isn't that nuts? Her second novel was The Autograph Man. And the third, On Beauty. The fourth, In W. And of course, today we are talking about Swing Time. I should also give a shout out to the professor who introduced me to all of her work. My old prof, Dr. Sarkar from the University of Toledo. Thanks. So, Swing Time. I had to write out a list of talking points so I wouldn't start babbling incoherently about everything going on in the book, because we don't have time for that. I'd like to make this a relatively short video. But like I said before, I am going to reveal some things, and if you're not ready for that, come back to this video later. So, Swing Time. We've got two young ladies that meet at 8 or 9 years old. They are the two main characters that we are going to deal with in the novel. There are a bunch of other outlier characters that affect their lives, but these two are what counts. Tracy and Tracy's friend who tells the story, our narrator, but the narrator has no name. So that's a little confusing. It's told from the perspective of this unknown narrator, who is, kind of on again, off again friends with Tracy, who is, a fellow 8 or 9 year old girl from the council estates of London, really working class, poor working class people. So that's one thing, and it took me about 70 pages to realize that I do not know who is talking right now. I do not know the name of the narrator, and it made me think like, oh, where have I seen this before? Ah yes, The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. We do get a nameless narrator, the Invisible Man. You can call him that. But we don't know his name, and it's the same thing going on in Swing Time. Once I started thinking about it, after I finished the novel, of course, I found there were other weird narrative parallels between Swing Time and Invisible Man. And if you haven't read Invisible Man, do that, please, because it's kind of one of the best books out there written about the Black experience. So first we've got a unnamed narrator just guiding us through this story. Second, we've got this cyclical plot arc where we start off one place, not really knowing the details of what's going on. She's just she's upset. There's scandal that she's embroiled in, and she goes on to explain it to us from like ages 9 up to 32. At the end of the book, we are back to where we were at the start of the book, and we should have learned something in between there. Another similarity is just the ambiguousness of ambiguity of the ending and how we're supposed to feel about it. You know, if you came away from reading The Invisible Man not really knowing what the main character is supposed to do with his life, you're not alone. And I think the same thing happens with Swing Time. Also, you get this sense that this main character, the narrator, is trying to fit herself into different people's lives, and she does it unsuccessfully. She tries to make herself into her mother's image, which is crazy difficult because her mom is just one of those powerful people who you can barely touch, you can barely communicate to. She tries to fit herself into her friend Tracy's world, who, you know, Tracy's doing her own thing at every turn and just really being difficult, or she just has a very difficult life. And then one of the other characters that pops up later on is Amy, the pop singer, who's kind of a Madonna figure in this book, because she goes off to Africa and comes up with a new pet project to save all of the poor Senegalese people there. So the narrator tries to fit herself into this world, again, unsuccessfully, and by the end of the book, she just doesn't know where the hell she is, and she doesn't know how she got there, really. So, again, very, very similar to what's going on in The Invisible Man. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts about this, but that's what really struck me once I finished. I just had this weighed down feeling like, ugh, I don't know where this woman goes from here, and maybe that's the lesson of it, this aimlessness that 20-something and 30-something-year-old women have in their lives, where they just are kind of lost. And I think you find some of those themes going on in NW. You also have themes of female friendship, similar to NW, between Tracy and the narrator. These two meet as children in a dance class where nobody knows what's going on. They're just there to dance. And Tracy, you can tell she's a real go-getter. She's pretty, she's talented, she's gonna make it. She knows this as a 9-year-old. The narrator is flat-footed, so am I. She's nerdy, she's built really large, and she knows, even though she doesn't want to admit it, that she's probably not going to be the great dancer that she wants to be, but she has the history of dance on her side. She knows and she researches, she reads books about dance, she learns about dance from, you know, Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. She learns about minstrel shows, she learns about Bojangles. This is kind of her education that she gives herself, for the simple fact that she's probably not going to be a dancer sharing the same limelight as her bestie or frenemy at some points, Tracy. So we've got unidentifiable narrative going on. We've got female friendships going on. These females are really, I mean, it's reflective of what a female friendship really is in real life. It's very complicated. Girls get into fights, they hate each other, and then they come back, so on and so forth. You really can't call it predictable friendship, but they go through a lot of heartbreaking things together, and they go through heartbreaking things apart. But these two have such a weird bond that even though things have gotten so terrible between the two of them, they find themselves like inexplicably still connected. So there's that. We've got class issues. The two of these girls come from, you know, relatively poor working class backgrounds. The narrator, her mother is a scholar, autodidact, if you will, who's just really trying to put herself through school and raise the revolution and, that sort of stuff. She's kind of an armchair philosopher, revolutionary. Her dad is, from the East End of London, really, really kind of criminal, dodgy background. We're not really sure if he's been to jail and if he has, what for, but he knew the Cray brothers. I think everybody did, so that's a fun detail. Tracy, her mother, just kind of lives through Tracy vicariously. And Tracy's father, who's a black man, is out of the picture. Sometimes in the picture, sometimes out. And Tracy's mother is white. So these are two biracial girls who meet and form this odd connection. They really just can't let each other go. Or it's very difficult for the narrator to let Tracy go, even though Tracy sometimes makes her feel terrible about herself. If we fast forward in the narrative to the narrator, as a grown woman and working on her own outside of the house, she gets hooked up with this terrible woman, the pop singer named Amy. Amy is just kind of that, white woman savior who wants to make everything historically flat and fix everything in a very simplistic way, wants to go over to Africa, the country, and, save those poor, desperate people. They go off to Senegal to build a school for girls, and they just have no idea what they're doing. I mean, Amy, the pop singer, she doesn't really know what she's doing, but she does have a team of people who, just take care of stuff for her. And one of those people on her team is the narrator. And this is what I'm talking about. The narrator has been her personal assistant for like 12 years. And so she's kind of put herself in this woman's world thinking that she's going to get something from herself. Does that make sense? That she's, if she can't get anything out of her mother, and if she can't get anything out of Tracy, maybe this Amy character will finally show her her true path, her destiny or something. So we're dealing with a very aimless young woman who just really doesn't know what she wants out of life. She's just kind of in a slump. This whole going to Africa to help the natives, Zadie Smith wrote about this in just such a smart way. This whole, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, business that charities are born out of, not really getting to know the people who live there, not really getting to know what their needs are, just bulldozing your way in and saying, I'm going to help you. Also, there's an adopted baby, a kind of stolen baby situation, which, mirrors what happened to Madonna not too long ago. That creates a bit of a scandal and gets the narrator in trouble. This is really interesting. This is a really interesting text that addresses, what mixed race children might be going through as far as identity in general. You've got two young ladies who, I think the term tragic mulatto was kind of thrown around, in jest, but also seriously. There is two sets of identities that these young ladies have to grapple with, and they don't seem to really come out with an answer at the end, and I don't think they're supposed to. I think, identity is supposed to be built over time, and there's no clear-cut answer about who one, biracial person is supposed to be. That's just not how it works. So we've got, I really want to talk about the narrator's mother. This woman is a piece of work. As I mentioned before, she's just one of those down to fight for every cause and raise the poor people up out of their working class, cogs in the machine mentality. She's not a very good mom. But then it also raises the question of what is a good mom? And I think in Zadie Smith's previous books, she does ask that question, and we do struggle with that answer. What makes a good mom? If you can provide for a child and give them what they, the basics of what they need, yeah, have you done your job? Well, we get the sense in this book that the narrator's mom is just kind of cold, withholding, and overly intellectual. She's not like Tracy's mom, who dotes on Tracy and builds Tracy up, even that's in a weird way. I can't say that Tracy and her mom's relationship is great either. There's a lot of miscommunication going on between these girls and their mothers. There's a lot of not listening and not understanding, which is the case with all mothers and daughters, really. So it is really interesting to read this narrative of how complicated life is, and how complicated these relationships with your friends are, with your parents are. None of Zadie Smith's books are going to... You're not going to finish any of her books and go, whew, I know the meaning of X, Y, or Z. There's just no clear answers. And that's great. I think that's fantastic. We're not supposed to know everything. I would like to end on this note. This has been an amazing book for Black girls. This is exactly what I needed to read at the end of this awful, godforsaken year, 2016, where racism is just rampant and it's gross and it's like killing our souls. This is the kind of book, this complicated book about color, about history, about blackness that I feel like I really needed to read at this moment. So that's great. Zadie Smith explicitly said in an interview, this book is for Black girls. I mean, it's for everybody. But I feel like if you are a young Black woman or older Black woman, you're going to see yourself in some of these issues. You're going to see some parallels. You're going to grapple with that question of what is Black identity, which is going to be really hard for you. And if you've ever read Invisible Man, I know I keep bringing that up, some of those questions still linger, and I think that's a great thing. So anyway, that is Swing Time. I hope that I didn't talk about this way, way too fast, but I'm super pumped about finishing it. And the next time we come back, we're going to talk about another book. And we're probably going to talk about comic books too, because I'm so into that right now. Until next time, happy reading, get on this book, and also check out Invisible Man, which is a given. You should do that now.